Well, thank you for having me here today. I'm really happy to be here. I'm sorry. I want to excuse myself for letting you down the previous time. It wasn't my fault. I tried a lot to be here, but it wasn't possible. So, thank you for being here. And I'm going to talk. I want to explain the Spanish pavilion, which I think is the issue. But I speak a little bit about myself. Our firm, rather. B720 is a terrible brand. It's one of the worst brands ever. It's difficult to remember, difficult to repeat, and it was my idea some years back. But try to represent that our work should be more important than ourselves. We would try to codify what we were at and what we were about. 720 was the International Code for Architecture. That's what librarians use. And B was just a simplistic way of being not too bad in the alphabetical order. We used the excuse that it meant good. It's buena in Spanish, but it was just trying to be. It was a code. I think it's quite significant that we ended up adding my name to it, which somehow is unfair because we're a team, but still people want to see who's the architect, which is not good, but sometimes it's not bad either. So they want someone who's responsible for what you're doing. But I won't talk about our work, but just about the Expo pavilion, the Milano pavilion, which to me is an interesting job in so much as it's quite the opposite of what you would expect it to be, or at least what we would expect it to be. Because when you think of a pavilion, you always think of an extremely experimental building, typically. Something that is meant to be surprising and never seen before kind of thing. And it's prone to some kind of experimental architecture you want, or whimsical architecture if you're less kind. And also it's prone to conceptual boldness, because there are strong symbolic messages behind the Expo pavilions. This Expo is about food, which is a serious matter in an overcrowded planet. So for us was somehow, how would I say it, put us in a humble position to have to acknowledge that our commission was constrained in a very somehow narrow space in terms of conceptually, because we were given a very precise program. It was not about our sort of happy or clever ideas on what we were supposed to be saying in this expo, or how clever or witty we were, but was about a very professional response to a very precise program. So the Spanish state had a very clear understanding of what they wanted to have in the pavilion and what they wanted to convey. It was a very rigorous series of programs which included restaurants, auditoriums, and an exhibition of contents or show, if you want. Actually, the pavilion was a very classic pavilion. It was not a very conceptual pavilion, which is something we like better. And we keep challenging the very concept of an expo in the 21st century. Because we were supposed to be providing the space for an experience, which is some kind of show, or if you want, the Disneyland experience of getting into explain some message, experiencing something more or less interesting or surprising, and then getting out of it. So that was very conventional, which at the beginning sounded like annoying somehow, but it was, to me, it ended up being a very natural way of feeling as an architect, because that's what architects do. architects solve problems that somebody else has. Ideally, that many people have. Society. In this case, was a public commission, where it was a competition, we won, but the rules were very, very tight. The second constraint was time. This had to be designed in a very short time and had to be built in an extremely short time. It always happens in Expo, but I think probably had to do with the crisis and this Expo, you all know that it was planned long time back, but just fall into a very serious crisis, I think similar to the one Italy is suffering. We were suffering, we're in the middle of a terrible crisis. So probably the decision to come and to do this pavilion was taken too late. And the budget, as you imagine, was small, relatively small compared to other pavilions. All those things were, to me, were good news at the end. At the beginning, it was sort of, in a way, not very comfortable, but then we realized that was exactly what an architect should be facing with. So the first reflection for us is try to avoid the two typical, to me, challenges Expo has, or to avoid the two most typical, I wouldn't say mistakes, but things I doubt are the best things you can do on an Expo pavilion, is to be this very clever guy who does something really strange, and second, spending a lot of money for something that's going to last for 6 months. So we did quite the opposite. We tried to do something that was very simple, very straightforward, and something that could be reused and would not be used, and not be a waste of resources. This is where our pavilion is. I guess by now you should be more or less familiar with the Expo layout. It's not far from the two main axes cross. It's just one of those lots. It's got this P shape, inverted P. That's where it is. It's in between. It's got, the only interesting thing to me about space is that it's got this open square there, which has been ended like an empty space with no treatment whatsoever, which is now it's a bit disturbing. And there are a few things that we took as an immediate approach. One was this formal contention. It was not going to be a formalistic building, which didn't mean it shouldn't be memorable. We thought it should be memorable, should be easy to identify, what now we all call identity, which is an Anglo-Saxon strange word for at least in Spanish, but to provide it with an identity, basically that you can recognize it, but in a very simple form. So that's what we did. The second was to use that form to convey the main message that our client was trying to convey. Actually, our client had tried to convey so many messages. I remember there was this funny anecdote with the people who were struggling with the contents, with the show. It was like showing it to the client. There was this all kind of things that were talking about wine and about paella and about research and about all these things. And everything was in fine. You almost have it all. It's good. It's fine. And the commissary mentioned, but nobody's mentioned cheese. I said, it was so that desperate. Well, yeah, we forgot cheese. There were so many things there. But however, we tried to narrow it down into two main messages. One was tradition, and the other one was innovation. And I think Spain, as many other countries are, but Spain can be proud of an old tradition of a very strong culture of very good food production, which refers, as many other Mediterranean countries, as Italy, for instance, in olive, with oil and wine. And at the same time, an extremely advanced, that's not so well known, extremely advanced industry and research in biotechnology for food production. So those two main messages could be conveyed with this simple form if we could just have this with the simplest ever form, the diagrammatic form, so if you want the shape that the child will draw of the shape of a building, particularly similar to the buildings in which food have been produced, stored. Nowadays, they are even invented in buildings like that. And I haven't brought images, but when I was explaining the competition, we had images of buildings that were hundreds of years old in Galicia, one in the northwest corner of Spain, made out of stone, that had exactly the same shape as the one at the opposite end corner of Spain, which was glazed greenhouse, very light and modern, and it was exactly the same shape. So that very simple shape, using just two different finishes, two different materials, could convey the idea. That's actually a little image of what it would look like. The second thing was to provide it, and again with this funny word of identity, was this mixed identity. Rather than identity was also that we had to convey more things than that. So the simplification of this rigor of these frames, we used just a series of frames, of structural frames that would be repeating at the same pitch, with a series of components that will fill those two bays. And those were capable of take finishes that made the experience more playful, if you want, entertaining experience, as you would expect in an expo. So we use finishing materials to convey color and materials that related to the food we produce in Spain. So we use the color of the oil, the color of the wine, the cork or the esparto that you use for producing those foods. From a more, if you want, architectural approach, or you want a spatial one, what we thought is that because we were given this program, we had to provide space for the show. Actually, the show people were good friends that were actually they call us in. They say, "Would you like to go with us to this competition? Because we know how to do the show." We decided to put this show above a very open as possible pavilion. So the pavilion could be just something you can get through. You could just go through it. It was if you want a gate or a gateless or a doorless pavilion. It was a pavilion without an entrance, exactly. So it's an open pavilion. We raised this exhibition at an upper level that you had to climb into and liberate to get free all the ground floor, not all, but as much as possible to make it permeable, and so that you could get through it. Actually, that helped us to provide an urban experience, the feeling of being out on the street, of being outdoors, to be the pavilion should be an extension of the Expo village, if you want, or the urban space. So we had these interior streets, and also an exterior piazza or square, which we imagine as an external space, very representative of something that I think we share probably with you, with Italy and other Mediterranean countries. But it's this celebration of food, of sharing food in the outdoors, in the open space. Typically under a shade of a vegetation shade, which we again used two different messages or two different means to provide that shade. One was the orange grove. So there was this patio of orange trees, which is probably one of the most traditional architectural or urban spaces in Spain. Next to a little chiringuito, which is this sort of kiosk where you have food and drinks in Spain, and a shade which, as opposed to the classic vine tree shade, we use this strawberry technology growing system, which is a very advanced system to grow strawberries without earth in southern Spain, which produces the most fantastic, beautiful, and savory strawberries that are sent and sold all over the world with a very, very advanced technology. So we use those two types of shade in this patio or square. So it was about this sort of urban approach to the pavilion itself as opposed to a building. So it was a celebrating of these outdoors. This thing was again about being responsible in this. So it was just not a formal message of rigor and simplicity, balance between goals and means to achieve them, but also, I mean, this sustainable approach of not just not consuming energy. I think it was, I must say, it's been very adequate and intelligent of the organizers to limit a lot the amount of energy you're available for the pavilions. I don't know whether you're aware of this, and if any other pavilion designers have mentioned it, but there's a very, very limited amount of energy available, so that forces you into not using much. And also the whole thing about being recyclable. Even literally, our pavilion is meant to be dismantled and reassembled. It could be. We don't know whether that will happen, or at least not completely. But in any case, could be completely recyclable, 100%. The other obviously idea was to have to be able to do it in a very short time. That is there's a graphic of how the whole thing was planned to be built. That's why we actually designed a project which could be rich in terms of the experience, but with a very limited amount of construction details, if you want. So we tried to reduce as much as we could, and that sometimes is a struggle, the amount of things that were into it, without being a very simple conceptual, but we still had to convey all the requirements, to meet all the requirements, which were very sort of various and diverse, and which included shops and stores and restaurants and showrooms. That's a very schematic drawing of how the whole thing is being assembled. So it's those symmetrical frames, which are made out of timber, which was sort of the safest material in terms of light, availability, speed of assembling, and easily transformed, even adjusted in the shop and then put on site. So this is a schematic of it. The idea is to have the frame, double frame, and then those boxes which alternate both bays, creating a continuous route for the exhibition. Those are the materials we used to convey it. Basically, we had a very, again, playful, even if you want childlike manner, something that could be, we wanted to be, somehow rigorous in terms of the approach, of the formal approach, and on the other hand, being even playful enough to be enjoyed by any kind of visitor in a very direct manner. So we wrapped those boxes, or made those boxes out of things like very shiny and neat and pure and advanced, if you want, in the innovation bay, and very traditional, rough, natural on the tradition bay. And then again, there was a very direct reference to wine, oil, olives, and to cork, wood, Sparto. I don't know the English for Sparto. I think it's Sparto. I'm not sure. Somebody mentioned it, if anybody knows it. Actually, we used something which comes from my memory as a child, those round as part of pieces you use to press the oil. I guess in Italy it's the same. We've got this alcazaba, which are the mills in which the olives are pressed. And we've got these beautiful round shapes that we use that to wrap one of the boxes in a very direct manner. So something that could be explained very easily to anybody who's curious about what is it and why is it there. Those are the sections of those two bays. You can see that those boxes sometimes grow, and the effect of these boxes at the upper level where the show container is that you create also not just liberate or free the ground level, but also you create an even upper level, a third level, which would help us to, or allow us to create some part of the program, or allocate the space for the program which was more private, like the offices for the commissar and the staff of the pavilion, but also areas for the workshops and more educative spaces for schools or groups, and the gastronomic restaurant, the very posh, sophisticated gastronomic restaurant, which was also part of the program, because Spain, for some reason, has become some kind of world power in haute cuisine and chefs, so we had to include that in our project. That's some of the images, and I'm allowed to bring those images before the project, just to show how the whole thing looks like now. That's how the program works. I haven't mentioned that some of the bits of the program, like the auditorium, which is sort of surrounded by this canopy of strawberries, as an independent box where will be some lectures and other activities will be held. And this is a clear diagram. That's the open space, the courtyard, this sort of digestive system, which is the show space, where you get into by going up that ramp in this big bay. You get into here, you go around it, you get the experience. I won't tell much about it, I'll give a hint of it. And then you go out, going round the patio and back into the pavilion. Actually, you go back directly into the shop, which is the most typical expectation your client has. You go right there, and you can buy some Serrano if you feel like. All right. That's how, again, another section which is of self-explanatory. It's really nice to see that this in and out, and there's also a kiosk there, and this is the haute cuisine restaurant, or the gastronomic restaurant, big terrace. Those are the VIP. Those are it's funny because although this is meant to be a very democratic project, and Expos are, though these pavilions, and we've had a previous experience in the America's Cup building some years ago, there's always this technique of grading privilege, even there. There's also this, which I used to be very critical of, but now I understand it should be part of it. This sort of play with what is available to different people, which is sometimes a strong and debatable part of the program. That's one of the images we made to explain the simplicity of this series of frames, the boxes with colors and shiny ones, matte ones, sort of mysteriously scientific, if you want, or technological, and bare, natural, old materials there, and this promenade, which help us to enclose the filling of the patio, which is part of very much part of an Spanish urban experience. Just to go roughly, quickly through the layouts. I mean, being in an architectural school is something I can afford to show some layouts, and I have to say, these are the original layouts, which have been slightly changed from the final version, mainly because of requirements of the firemen of Lombardia, which I still have some regrets here as to really whether that was strictly necessary, but there was no time to debate with them, and they're very rigorous. So I'll show you a bit of that. But basically we got those two bays, which have almost cathedral-like proportions, which I'll show, and that house the route all the way up to the exhibition, and also an installation by a fantastic artist, Antonio Miralda, who's a Spanish artist, who's been working a lot of, for many years on the relation between art and food. I'll show you a little bit. This is still open. All these frames are open. You can get through it. These are some technical spaces there, and this is the kitchen for the restaurant. But all this is open. Even this restaurant here is open. And this is the patio with the orange trees, and this is the auditorium. Actually, in the final version, this is more flexible. It can be open both ways, because this can be completely open and linked to this, so the people will be able to stand there all the way. This is a section from the entrance. This is the ramp. You get into there, and you go into this sort of digestive system, and this is the upper level. This is self-explanatory. This is the show, which you enter that way. If you're privileged enough, you can have a shortcut here. This is a secret. You can jump the queue if you know how. Get into there, you go all the show, have the final experience, which is nice, I must say. Really nice, and you get out, and then you can go the shortcut, or you can go round the olive tree all the way, and you will end up anyway near the shop. This is Miralda's job. It's worth, and I suggest that you have the opportunity to go there and pay attention to it. It's full, and I'll try not to unveil anything of the I recommend that you should pay attention to the messages which are there. Some of them have been, I think, they've been escaped the comprehension of some of the people that are involved in the project. And there's some very interesting meanings there to be discovered. Some of them are quite strong and controversial. And actually, there's some interesting hints at even at the Italian culture of food. The theme, however, is the trip or the travel of the food. It's represented by these flying suitcases. It's got to do with how food travels, how food used to travel, which relates a lot to Spain, being in the middle of many food exchanges in the world throughout its history, but also how food is produced and consumed nowadays in the world. Just a little bit of the ideas that were in the context of the experience. It's basically the same, but I bought just the sketchy ideas for you to try to be, not to reveal too much, and encourage you to go and visit the show. But I would say it's conventional in the sense that it's a series of rooms you will be jumping for. And so it's not this, I must say, we have avoided, however, what to me at least is very annoying, this thing of the pulsed system, where you wait, you're given this experience, that you have given some other experience, and then you go out, and it doesn't depend on you how much you take. You are there, and I tend to be typically disappointed. So in this case, you may like it or not, but you can go through it and enjoy it as much as you want. The timing is yours. That to me was an important thing, and I insisted on that. at the time. Those are on top of those rooms are this series of workshop spaces or classrooms or meeting rooms. There are orchards and laboratories for cooking or planting and growing, and also the terrace for the VIP restaurant or the expensive restaurant or the sophisticated restaurant, if you want. This is the image of what we intended to do. That was before. The local firemen insisted on closing that stair and to save all our, to reduce our risks. I don't know why, but that is a very more sort of conceptual approach of the finishes. That's what we, and those, just as try to finalize here, those are very recent photographs of the pavilion by Adria Goula, which is not just a friend, but I think one of the best photographers of architecture nowadays. And so if he hasn't, if these photographs are not nice, the building has got no hope whatsoever, because Adria is really good at this. This is the top roof of the tradition bay. This is the innovation bay with a restaurant terrace. This is where everything joins, and you can understand the open space at the ground, the shiny containers of the oily finish and the sort of wine finish and the cork at the bottom. This of rich offer of color and textures, and with the reflection of this shiny and mysterious technological device. So laboratory-like or industrial environment. The ramp inviting you to go all the way into the exhibition. The shop, that's where the Serrano is there, and the mats for pressing the oil. The strawberries are there, not yet, but now, I mean, not in the photograph, but now they are. I've seen them this morning. It was nice to see. I've even eaten them, and they're nice. They're good. So that you will see there's plenty of strawberries. All right, you can have a tinto or a tapa under that strawberry shade in the restaurant. I must say, I still resenting those silly plantings there, which I don't know why the restaurant operators there. Something we must have done wrong in order to have that there. That is the back end of the which explains this of the addition of the stacking of different layers, and this, in a way, very humble and direct production building-like image, not a formal innovation, just a very, if you want, sincere and clear explanation of what it's all about. Those are Miralda's flying suitcases. This is a huge suitcase with a screen, which seems like quite sort of straightforward system. But I recommend that you pay attention to the images and the meaning of them, which are not obvious at all. That's the tradition bay. That from above. That's how it looks like at night. That's the feeling of what the show. All right, that's all. I hope it's not too quick, too low. I'm open to any questions, and I try to be so concise and not to bore you this time. Thank you very much.